Morning,
Good
good
morning.
afternoon, evening. I'm Dr. Michael Everest, founder and Chief Academic Officer at Residence Medical. I have two very distinct guests. Who's to my right is Dr. Raj Ramsamuj. Not only is he a personal family friend that's helped me develop the Everest Foundation, but he's also the former program director and vice chairman at UC Davis School of Medicine and has extensive knowledge in not only running a program that was error free, if you will, but also has extensive knowledge in the residency match section and has matriculated probably thousands of students throughout his career. He is a Stanford Fellowship graduate and a just a old school genius, if you will. To my left is a dear friend of ours, Dr. Ike. He has such an amazing story, and I can't wait to share it, Dr. Ike. He came to us. He was a house physician, really running a program in New York, assisting our elderly patients, and had such a passion. He wanted to help so many people, but he couldn't get his foot into residency. So we opened up a pathway where he integrated and he proved himself, and he has just done an exceptional job at a university affiliated program in New Jersey. And not only that, but he achieved one of the highest ITE scores, uh, not only in the program, but probably in the Eastern United States. So, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for doing this webinar. The webinar is labeled Roadmap to Residency Success. Wherever you are in your journey to be a medical resident or fellow in the United States of America, we're going to give you some tips, practical tips, and just give you some free knowledge and wisdom from our arsenal of experience and just collaboration. So, in saying that, Dr. Raj, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Raj Ramsmidge. As Dr. Evers graciously introduced me, I don't think I'm as great as he thinks I am, but we'll go with that at any rate. So I was program director in pathology at UC Davis for 14 plus years. Seen a lot of medical students applying, seen a lot of residents applying to various things, and currently helping a lot of medical students from my own medical school as well as through Residence Medical and the Evers Foundation successfully match.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsmith. Dr. Ike,
Hi, Dr. Michael Everest. I'm Dr. Raji, and all others of our guests. My name is Ikechukwu Okereke. My friends call me Ike. I'm a graduate from University of Nigeria College of Medicine, and I migrated to the United States in 2016. Throughout the time I was here in the United States, I was working in the pizza shop and doing some factory job until I got to New York in 2020 when I started my house physician. And at that 2022, I discovered I was rediscovered by Resident Medical. Today, I'm one of their successful place candidates into internal medicine in a program in New Jersey. Welcome, everyone.
great. Thanks, Dr. Ike. And I'd like to really encapsulate what we do at Residence Medical in helping um, formidable candidates like Dr. Ike. It's about giving them an opportunity to prove themselves. They get to integrate and prove themselves, but we're really helping true diversity and true minority folks. Dr. Ike comes from Nigeria. There's a misconception that every foreigner that comes to America needs a visa, needs this. He didn't need a visa. He just needed a chance. He needed a chance. He had American green card or citizenship. I don't remember, but it's irrelevant. What he needed was a chance. He came to America, worked at a pizza shop, and it reminds me of something that my father did when he came to Houston and wanted to go into cardiothoracic, and he worked at night shift at a gas station. So these American dream stories, right? reaching the highest echelons of medicine. This is a true um, and tried and tested example. If you work hard, you hold on to your dream, and you keep pushing forward, the doors will open. And going to that, I want to go over a little about what the match and what the residency process is. So we have just gone through, or we're about to go through, what's called the pre-match process. So the pre-match process is where you apply through Eros, but if you are uh, fortunate enough to be offered a medical residency contract before the main match, which is the big time with 30 some thousand students from anesthesiology to other specialties. The main match, get offered a position through the National Residency Match Program. Once you do a pre-match, then what happens is you have to withdraw out of the main match. You have to accept that position if you do. So you can't shop around and take away other people's opportunities. Then in March, there's the main match. The main match is a time when there is an algorithm that was created where, let's say, Dr. Raj's program likes Dr. Ike, and Dr. Ike likes Dr. Raj's program. He ranks them one, Dr. Raj ranks them one, and that's supposed to connect them and say, congratulations, you've been accepted. Now, that is a binding contract. You can't say, once you're matched, you can't say, oh, well, let me go try something else. So that's the match. And then right after the match, what old timers like Dr. Raj and I used to call the scramble, but I guess now it's called SOAP, is when it's a supplementary offer program where it goes rapidly. They do quick interviews, and it's a type of a ranking, and you have to accept, and you're done. There's about 3,000 global, including American students, that don't go pre-match, don't go match, and don't go through SOAP. So they're stuck, and those students have a hard time when it happens year after year after year. It's been very competitive. If you remember Dr. Raj, back 20 years ago, you're 10, 12 years out of medical school. If you stayed relevant, it wasn't a big deal. But now, at a university program, it's 3 years out of medical school max. Many don't accept international medical graduates. Your USMLE scores are to be distinctly higher. So it's very difficult if you don't match. But there are other opportunities in that. You have post match, post soap. Then you have off track positions that begin. And then you also have programs that get accredited throughout the year where there's positions available. Those are hard to find, and usually those are filled internally. Um, I would like to talk a little about, Dr. Raj, how you assess, without doing any proprietary leakage, on how you assess if a applicant is going to be a good fit for your program. And if we can talk a little about that, because it's getting around the rank order list time, and I think that would be a good way to start.
Sure. So program directors go through a lot of information, if you will, when they are looking at potential matches. Now, I cannot stress how important the interview is, because once they've looked at your application, they've deemed that you are worthy, so to speak, of matching. You have the credentials and necessary things. Um, what they're looking for during the interview is, how well do you fit into their program? In other words, do you have the same sort of ideals, goals, etc.? How is it that you would fit in with the current resident cohort? The other thing that I think a lot of people do in the interview is they're unnatural, and they don't come across with their typical way that they communicate, because you have to realize the people that are interviewing you, and we just take internal medicine, for example, they're looking at spending the next 3 years with you in residency, and they want to make sure that they can work with you. And so, again, the interview is very important when it comes right down to ranking individuals. Um, Depending on the specialty in which you go into, some place a high importance on step scores. Letters of recommendation are very important. And, there's a feeling out there that you have to have a lot of research. And really, they're not particularly interested in you having a lot of research. They're more interested in the skill set that you've developed doing research. That needs to be somewhere highlighted, if you will, in your personal statements as well as during the interview process.
No, I mean, you're hearing it directly from a decision maker. And yeah, very well said. Now, thank you, Dr. Raj. Now, going to you, Dr. Ike, it's very interesting because you have really a twofold pathway. You have your U.S. grad that comes from an MD school. It's a little harder for DO school graduates, and then you have your United States international medical graduate who is of a American citizenship or green card, goes to the Caribbean, goes to Europe, goes abroad, if you will, to study. And then you have your non-US international medical graduate that comes from another country, needs help with a visa. And in the pecking order of things, it's really MD, DO, non-US IMG, US IMG and non-US IMG. And then your MD folks, and even some US IMGs will have 8, 10 interviews. So they get to decide, do I like this program, do I not? But then there's this contrast that no one really talks about where you have very qualified non-US IMGs. They get one interview, they get maybe 2 interviews. So in saying that, how would you rank strategically, both if you have multiple interviews and if you have a few interviews? And maybe you can give your example in what you uh, the couple of programs that you interviewed at, what pushed you, what decisions, strategic decision making did you make in order to rank a program to successfully achieve residency?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Everest. This is a very hard decision to make, coupled with the anxiety that comes with if I'm going to March, if I'm not going to March. Of course, every program will assure you, oh, we like your candidacy. We are going to consider you in our application. They say the same thing to everyone. But one thing that stands out for me during the course of the interviews I got previously and how the interview went was trying to go through the program, like Dr. Raj, see the composition of the applicants there and look at what the program director's mission is. And often at times after doing that, it doesn't really hold water because they're already seeing a lot of things. They're also considering so many things about you. Do you have an attempt? What is your USMLE score? And all that. But during my last interview that eventually leads to my match, I was very focused on my experience and how abreast I am to current guidelines in medical practice. Most of the questions they ask me, I try to use my current medical ideas in terms of what I do. I do not give direct answers. I try to give examples of what I'm doing. Like if I want to say I'm hardworking, I will say it in such a way that the hard work will reflect on my statement. If I say I'm humble, I will give an example, stuff like that. When it comes to ranking, I worked closely with Resident Medical and discussed my interviews with them. And they guided me through where they think would be a better fit for me. And, they gave me things to consider. I discussed everything with them. They told me the interview went this way, the interview went that way. What about this program? What about this program? Then that helped me in my decision making.
Great. Thank you for that wisdom, Dr. Ike. And in saying that, when you were talking about USMLEs, I just want to take a quick question from the audience to stay engaged. The question is it possible for a graduate, I guess, to take USMLE, or is it considered a lag? on my CV. So the way the U.S. system works is you want to get your step one and step two out of the way before graduation, or at least step two right around graduation. If you're a foreign graduate and you start taking your shelf exams post graduation, then what I think, and I'd like to chime in with Dr. Raj, is you better be doing more than one thing. In residency, you have to be able to do didactics, presentations, even some research in some specialties. So if you've graduated and you say, well, I took 2 years off to study for USMLEs, that's not really high functioning in our American medical system. Now, if you graduated and you're taking your USMLEs and you're doing hands on clinical experience, or even a research tenure, and you're multitasking and you're getting letter of recommendation showing that you can do multiple things effectively and efficiently, then that works in your favor because you came from a foreign country, getting to know the system, you're not stopping. There was something called the California PTAL letter many moons ago, and they used to have a section for international medical graduates that if you have more than a 60-day gap, you're probably not getting that letter. So a gap in your CV is very, very detrimental to your success. And I think, in my experience, saying that I took a year off to study for USMLEs, uh, if you got high scores, yeah, I guess you can validate that. But I think you should be able to do more than one thing because medicine, you have to be able to do more than one thing. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Raj?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. Everybody, I think applicants, especially IMGs, really stress about having gaps in the residency, or if their year of graduation is more than a few years. And I agree with Dr. Everest in that, studying for your family is perfectly fine, but you do really need to be doing something else. Meaning you can be doing research, volunteering, getting as much U.S. clinical experience as you can. Um, because you have to realize that if we take it out of the medical realm and going into residency, let's say you're hiring someone for, gosh, I don't know, a salesperson. And the last time they were in sales was 5 years ago. And in the past 5 years, they haven't done anything. Well, they may not have any real world experience compared to someone who maybe their last job ended a year ago. So it's more about the experience, kind of growth, as well as staying current. So really anything that you can do at the same time that shows that you have a vested interest in your future and you're doing what you can to be successful shows up well to recruitment committees, program directors, and doesn't necessarily negate having a year of graduation of a few years.
No, very well said. And in saying that, I think that I also want to address something that's been happening, and I think that there's a confusion or a misconception. We get a lot of folks that come in saying, "Oh, well, Tennessee is not going to require residency, and I can practice medicine after 1 year of residency or residency in my home country." And I think there's a couple other states that are doing that. Although that is true, it may not be standard yet, but there are some states that will allow that. But you have to understand there's practicing medicine and then there's practicing as a board certified doctor in a specialty. So you can do a residency, a 1 year preliminary residency, and we'll talk about preliminary residencies after this and the advantages of it. And you can work as a general practitioner in about 3 or 4 states, including Georgia, and you can have a very good career as a general practitioner. But the validity that, using this example is ABIM, American Board of Internal Medicine, you must complete a residency. We've hear abstract things about let me do a fellowship first. You can go backwards, but it should really be focused within the parameters of the system. prepare, integrate, get good scores, do research, and if you're a non-US IMG or even a US IMG, focus on community-based programs. A lot of university programs have unset rules, especially in tough specialties as ortho or otolaryngology, where foreign graduates are not accepted. And I give this whole tirade, if you will, is giving Dr. Ike's example. He was a house physician in New York. He was able to work under an MD, but not, he is an MD, work under an MD, but not independently practice. He had a plethora of people under him. He was a leader. But his desire was, this is great, but I want to have my DEA number. I don't want to have someone sign off on it. I want to have a career. I want to have a board certification. So, yes, you can go these different routes. But if you're monomaniacal about being a board certified physician, or even better, a fellow in America, then there's really only one route to get that done. And that route has been etched ever since the Case Western Group started the match. And it's been etched even before that in getting doing graduate and postgraduate training, 3 years for internal medicine, passing your boards, and then moving on to fellowship or practicing as an internal medicine doctor. And so you really have to decide. There's a lot of ways, right? And if you haven't been able to get residency forever, that may be a way for you. But if you're really serious, you have to reach out to an organization. And I'm not really this webinar is really not about plugging Residence Medical. You guys can go to our site and see what we do. We help people, like Dr. Ike. But it's about having focus, because if you go to an interview and you speak with the program director, well, yeah, I'm thinking about, if I don't get a residency, I'm going to go practice in Tennessee because I have to finish my residency abroad. They don't really want to hear that. And they don't want to hear that you want it right quick. People like Dr. Raj, they have dedicated their life to academic medicine. They've taken time to do research, time to study, time to take off. They haven't been in a rush to go nowhere. So what you have to show is just focus. And when you show focus, and as Dr. Ram Samuj said, you show passion and you're likable to that program, right? And that has an unsaid magic to it because you just have to connect with people. Then you get yourself up that ladder of rank order list. And maybe you can talk a little about your experience in that, Dr. Ike, and that how house physician wasn't your thing because it's limited. All of these programs are limited 4 to 6 years, some even 2 years. Board certification after you continue doing your CME is unlimited. So give us a little about your decision on why that wasn't good enough for you, Dr. Ike.
Yeah. For some listeners here who are still thinking about, instead of working in pizza shops or offloading trucks for Victoria's Secret, stuff like that, house physician was best option at a time for me to grow. Actually, like you were saying something about, as a house physician, you have your MPI, you have your DEA, you have everything a physician would have. But the only trouble is that, as it was stated, limited. All those power are only invested in a nursing home where you are licensed, and the license is durable just for 4 years. Depending on who you are working with, you can actually make more money than most physicians working in the hospitals. But the thing is, like Dr. Everest correctly stated, is a limited license that will not serve the purpose of, um, long time for you. So you really need to do things that will propel you towards getting into residency. It's not, some people work as house physicians and have their license expired on them without getting into residency. That's not where you want to be. For you to use this license effectively, you have to show a form of, purpose for your life. You have to be dedicated to work because you are actually going to work just as a third year resident if you are looking at it from the standpoint where I am today. You are going to be in charge of the nurses. You are going to be in charge of the lab. You are going to be in charge of all the investigations, be it imaging and labs done for the patients, and you are going to be in charge of the entire nursing home. Yes, you are supposed to be under an attending physician, but you will never see them. If they knew so well that you know what you are doing, you will never see them. They have to create that trust for you. And some of them will also create a pathway for you to getting into residency. On my case, I barely know my former boss before. I mean, I've not known him before I joined resident medical, and I joined resident medical 6 months before my 7 to 6 months before my match. So that was a very short duration of time. So limited permit is a very good way to start. It's a very good way to build your clinical experience. It's a very good way to give you confidence. It's a very one of the best tools to use to prepare yourself towards being a successful intern when you start your residency. I tell you this, my first week in residency was defining for me because I think after the second week, the associate program director came to discuss history and physical exam with interns. And all the history that stood out he was using were all written by me. They knew it's me, but the names were not there. And I knew they were written by me. So, and the reason I will emphasize this history taking physical exam, if you're accepted into residency, will be a defining time for you. If you don't do well in these areas, they will be looking like you at you like you are not serious. So that's what I would say. Well, as a house physician, it gives you a very good definition of how your residency will look like.
No, that's very well said. And we've had good fortune in helping some of our residency candidates become house physicians, practice for a year or two, and then go into the residency program and be superstars. And I fully agree with that. Dr. Raj, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on all of these variances of board certification and such?
Specifically, what do you mean by board certifications?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the distinction between what Tennessee is doing or some of these other states are trying to do, where they're saying residency is not important. You can get a license if you've done residency before, but you cannot get board certification. What are the merits of actually being board certified versus practicing in a vulnerable population area on these limited licenses? What are your thoughts on that? And do you see value in that?
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So, as Dr. Evers said, there are states where you can practice medicine, basically as a general practitioner. The issue really in those situations is because you do not have a subspecialty board, you cannot bill, for example, under your own medical license. You can't bill insurance and things of that nature. It has to be under another licensed physician's medical license. So the pluses of that are obviously the ultimate responsibility of somebody else. However, I think most of us as physicians like the independence, like the control, if you will. Control might be a bad word. I don't think we're all control freaks. We are all driven, of course, but I don't think we're necessarily have to be in control. But it limits, if you will, what you can and cannot do. Now, with a ACGME residency on your belt, you are eligible to sit for boards, and that gives you a lot of flexibility to move to other states, work at different capacities, and also, potentially down the road, have your own practice where you can recruit like physicians. You can work in a private group and bill and really have some independence. Um, I cannot emphasize enough the independence and work life balance that comes with the flexibility of how, when, and where you want to work. It took me probably 6 or 7 years to create the work life balance that I wanted as a physician. And I would not have been able to do that if I didn't have my own subspecialty board.
No, very well said. Thank you for that, Dr. Ram Samuj. And I want to go into a question at that, and then in about 10 minutes we'll wrap it up. One of our audience members, and thank you for joining, says my U.S. clinical experience are only observerships, but the letter of recommendations are from a program director. Is that good enough, or am I still at a disadvantage? So, really being a subject matter expert in this, you see behind me is a potted plant, right? A observership is a potted plant. You sit in the back and you just observe. They're not going to be able to distinguish your history taking, as Dr. Ike said, the way your interpersonal communication skills between patient or peer to peer, and there's only a few states that allow postgraduate hands-on experience. Although it's good you were doing something, my suggestion would be that you go to a state that you can do hands-on postgraduate, assuming that you're postgraduate by the context of your question. Going to a state such as Florida, Ohio, where these clinical experiences are very difficult to get, especially in an inpatient hospital. There's been so many groups and companies that do this, but to get the right clinical experience, this is my experience and advice: work under a program, meaning you're working amongst the residents, the attendings, and the decision makers. Be hands on. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put an A line, but be hands on where you'll be able to take history. You're able to go to didactics and discuss. You're able to talk to a patient. You're able to, under the strict supervision, give an assessment to a patient. Uh, Kind of like what you would have missed if you didn't go to a medical school and you went to a medical school abroad, that medical students do if they're U.S. graduates. So in the pecking order of things, it's inpatient, teaching hospital, hands-on clinical, which is number one. That's what you really want to talk about because you can really talk about cases and correlate your personal statement to that. The second is doing these preceptor based, going in a doctor's office, doing some work. He lets you touch the patients. Don't say you've done hands on in an observer state because you're going to get the program in trouble or the doctor in trouble. Boards are very, very strict about that. And the third is really observerships, where you don't get an idea uh, of where what you will do under a code situation. You're not able to prove yourself to the people around you on how you would operate under a high stress situation. So I think that observerships are a disadvantage levied up against someone that has hands-on clinical in a teaching hospital. Um, but at least it's something. So I hope that answered your question. And if the distinguished gentlemen have any input in that, kindly,
Yes. Should I say something, Dr. Everest?
please.
Okay. So, thank you for your question. If you are listening to me, observership for programs, I don't think is what they're looking for. The reason why I say this to you is because when you get in, every program director wants to hire someone that will not be that will be a success story by the seniors. When you are an intern, you have supervisors. Your supervisors are basically people who are um, who just graduated as interns. So they are giving feedback to the faculty. They are giving feedback to the program director. They are giving feedback to everybody. So what that means is that you are closely being watched. Although residency is a training, everyone likes things to be done in such a way that the stress of residency will be mitigated. If you are just an observer, I'm just saying how they will look at you. If you are just an observer without hands-on, they'll be looking at you as someone they are going to teach. That is the recommendation for you to be taught. But imagine there is somebody who has a letter showing that they can take history, they can do physical exam independently. So this is a bias, and the bias is genuine. they are definitely going to go with someone that has hands-on, because when you are looking at us as interns, there are just basically two things they are assessing. They are not even interested in your assessment and plan. Assessment and plan they are going to teach you. If you have assessment and plan as an intern, it's add-on and it will boost you exponentially. But history taking physical examination, you have to be, I don't know how else to say it, you have to have it at your fingertip. It is not something I would advise you to go and learn as intern, because that is your sole job.
Very well said. Very well said, Dr. Ike. Any thoughts, Dr. Raj?
Sure. I agree with what Mike and Ike have said. I think I would maybe slightly put it in a different perspective. Um, Now, I don't want to give you the impression that residency programs, preceptors, attendings, residents don't want to teach. But what they certainly don't want to do is have to help a new resident that maybe is not up to speed and help them with remediation. And that really is the central issue, um, which is one of the concerns, certainly, when the year of graduation is several years out. They're wondering, well, you have the skills, you probably have the knowledge, but it's been 8 years since you've actually done a history and physical or written a note. How long is it going to take you to get up to speed with your colleagues that are in the same PGY1? So it's not so much that the observerships are a kiss of death; they're better than nothing. However, what the programs are looking at are you able to come into the residency and hit the ground running without someone having to spend a lot of time bringing you up to speed?
No, yeah, it's very well said. So we have about 8 minutes. I want to just wrap up a couple of things. First, let me answer the question, and then we'll do some closing comments. And then offline, if you go onto our live chat on our site, you can continue to ask questions through our residency counselor specialist here. So the gentleman's asking, should visa status sponsored by the program be criteria while considering a program being non-US IMG? What is the potential of considering an H-1B community hospital over a J-1? So you'll see more and more, pardon me. This year, there are caps on what visa and amount of visas programs are taking. One of the largest teaching hospital programs in the world, definitely in America, is the HCA program. They have a cap on that. We'll only take a few people that do J1 visas, that need J1 visas, I should say. And the problem is with needing a visa, there are just too many. Excuse me. There are too many new DO schools that opened up. Too many new MD schools that are opening up, where they don't need more. They don't need to sponsor a visa. Yes, there is a place that visa non-US IMGs fill in vulnerable population communities, but they're not going to. There's very few programs that sponsor H-1Bs. They're very difficult to get. Usually, you have to be fully integrated into a program. For that, it's hard enough to get a J-1 visa program to rank you high. What we found is there are certain programs that are non-US IMG friendly, but you have to integrate. They have to know you. They want to make sure, as Dr. Raj rightfully said, that they're not going to have to remediate you. You're not going to, that you know the coding system. You know how history and physicals are taken. Your communication skills are done. So in your case, Mr. Prashant, any program that accepts you and you're able to get a visa is really a blessing, and it's getting more and more difficult. And you'll see postgraduate this year that most of the people that don't match are going to be the ones that needed visas. So in saying that, be hopeful. There are different opportunities. Here at Residence Medical, we don't even like to really deal with people that need visas. We help people that are very well qualified first, And then we try to say, okay, maybe this program that sponsors visa will like them, and you have to really go prove yourself. But it's become very challenging, and it'll be more and more challenging. So I hope that answers your question. I really want to end it in a couple of ways. If you don't match, it's okay. Figure out a way, stay strong, have a story. There's nothing more endearing than not giving up and actually doing something about your case. If you keep circling the same mountain, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to get the same results. So if you don't have, you're not matching, get more clinical experience. You're not matching, find a community-based hospital. Program integration in what residence medical does is really our key in getting our students attention from the decision makers, is getting there and having them there so that day in, day out, they're the first to come, last to leave. They have emotional stability and maturity. They have sound judgment. That's what you can show on a day to day basis. And the second thing is, if you get a preliminary position or if you're going for a preliminary position, that's not the scarlet letter. Any training is better than no training. You got to get your foot in the door, especially if you're a non-US IMG. Even more so if you have some red flags on your application. That PGY1 prelim is the best thing that can happen to you because you get your foot in the door, you make your decisions daily. People observe your decisions that are watching you, that are marking you on your evaluations. And if you do well in your prelim, there is no reason why you do not advance. The program director themselves will offer you a position in that program or definitely recommend you. And now you're inside the system. You've proven yourself. You show that you're not a burden on the program. So those are really the ways of those are some misconceptions that really need to be addressed. And you should really, any training is better than no training. Stay true to yourself. Stay true to the specialty you want. A pathologist does not want somebody there because pathology is easy, which is not anymore. A pathologist wants someone that's passionate about pathology. A an internal medicine program wants someone that's passionate about internal medicine, not someone, well, I wanted neurology, but I didn't get it, so I'll do internal medicine. So stay focused. Focus doesn't lie. Be real, be passionate, and just be never give up. All I can tell everybody out there is don't give up. We do story after story that everyone gave up on them, but they didn't give up on themselves, and therefore they inspired Residence Medical to not give up. And they're doctors, they're board certified. We help them get into fellowship as well. So, just there's a process in this, and you need guidance. If you go to a U.S. medical school, you have a plethora of team members behind you, your counselors, your dean, your this, your that. If you're a non-US IMG, or USIMG, you don't have that team behind you. You need a team behind you to guide you, to help you make the right decisions. So that's really all from my perspective as a closing statement. If Dr. Ike, you would give a closing statement and some inspiration and advice. And then, of course, the best for last, Dr. Raj, if you would give as well. And then we'll sign off.
Right. For our prospective candidates, I'm wishing you all the best. But one thing I would remind you is success does not come without a price you have to pay. The significant price you have to pay here, as Dr. Everest just stated, is to never relent until success is achieved. Keep working hard, keep diversifying your resources, keep attempting new things, keep staying focused. And with Resident Medical, I think sky will be your limit.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ike. And I'm so proud of you. So, so proud of you. What you've done over there in that program, we get calls all the time that Dr. Ike is amazing. So thank you because you open up the door for other people that come to Residence Medical. And we're just proud to be part of your success and we're humbled by it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Dr. Raj, anything else in closing?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with everything my colleagues have said. Um, there is something to say about those applicants that have a passion, are committed, and vested in their future. I'll give you a little bit of advice, so to speak, with regard to a potential residency interview question that a lot of people get asked, and it kind of underscores this opinion, if you will, or reality of how program directors, recruitment committees look at applicants. A lot of times, in an interview, you might get asked, well, what do you see yourself doing in 5 or 10 years or after residency? And most people will kind of give a response like, oh, I see myself, man, maybe doing a fellowship and, practicing in a community hospital. It answers the question. But really, what they're looking for is, do you as an applicant have a vested interest in successfully completing this residency because it is necessary for you to get to your end goal? And so a lot of people fail in kind of giving a plan, if you will, for themselves. I need this residency because eventually what I want to do is XYZ. The only way I can do that, I'm committed, I'm passionate, is to complete this residency. That lets the programs know, yeah, I don't think I'm going to have any problems hiring or matching this resident because they really have a plan for themselves. They know where they want to be and they know what they want to do. Similarly, if you backtrack a few years, when you perhaps have a few years from your year of graduation, how committed are you? How vested are you in your future? What have you done to ensure that you are going to make it in the end? So my, I guess, closing words would be never give up. Um, Always strive to get to where you want to go. It may not be a straight line from A to B. You might have to go off on a tangent a little bit and then come back. But showing a concerted effort and a vested interest in your future and getting to where you want to be will carry a lot more weight than you think.
Absolutely. Well said. And I have nothing to add to that. Thank you so much, Dr. Ike, for taking your valuable time and volunteering your valuable time. And Dr. Ram Samuj, as busy as you are, thank you so much for this advice. And I hope that this free webinar helped everybody. You can contact Residence Medical, look us up, and we have people that will help and guide you. And signing off, have a wonderful day, gentlemen and audience members, and blessings to all you guys. Thank you.
Same to you. Bye-bye.